All right. Hi, everybody. I'm going to share in a moment, but I wanted to give you a couple of caveats. This is a really long presentation. I'm going to do everything I can not to speak too quickly. And there'll be some slides where I'll be telling stories from my own personal experiences and knowledge from certain classes or shows I've been to. And then I will stay on those slides. And then the other ones I might flip through rather quickly. And I don't want you to worry. This is being recorded, and I'm going to give the Plastic Club about 3 pages of links and resources and all the research I did for this presentation for anything you'd like to explore. So don't panic if something goes by faster than we normally would like to view it. It won't be like that fast, but maybe 10, 20 seconds, because I don't want to keep us here forever. And let me see. Let me bring up the slide. I'll share my screen. Everybody can hear me? Okay, great. Let's see, I'm going to share now. Okay. Can everybody see that? Okay. The title is exactly what it says. These are the things that I've learned about in 10 years of higher education and being an artist, fine art degree, many degrees, and learning about what is on the edge of the canon, what is accepted, what has been accepted. Now, a lot of this information might seem a little bit dated because the canon is changing and things are getting absorbed as the world is becoming more accommodating, slowly but surely. So, okay, here we go. We're going to talk about these subjects: appropriation, protest art, outsider art, which is huge. There are so many subcategories that we're about to learn about. Expanded painting, and then takeaways, which I will have some things to show you. Okay, so, oops. I will be, okay, wait, I can't, sorry, I'm in a little Zoom trouble here. Hold on. I'm trying to lower, let me get out of this for 1 minute. I'm sorry. I have to lower this window and then I'll go back in. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, appropriation in art and art history refers to the practice of artists using pre-existing objects or images in their art with little transformation of the original. This is one explanation. Here's another. With the bold intention of repurposing existing and often iconic artistic imagery, those who create appropriation art borrow or copy in order to reframe it and make it their own. Whether it be a commercial artifact like a soup can or a universal recognizable piece of fine art, appropriation art has been around for centuries. Through the mid-20th century rise of consumerism led to a newfound significance and prevalence. And I wanted to say that, I meant to say this before we went into the slides, and my head is bursting with information, so I got a little lost there. I was prompted and inspired to put this together from being a part of the Plastic Club and going to lots of other salons over this last year outside of the Plastic Club. And with my experience of teaching workshops and running into people, how many people have you heard say, oh, I can't draw, I'm not an artist? Or in the salons I hear artists always feel like that they don't belong because they didn't get properly trained. And they seem to negate their purpose for making art. They don't mean to, but they feel intimidated. And the purpose of this whole presentation is to show people what is out there, what's possible, and how much you don't have to be defined by what you think is expected. And there's a great line that someone I know said, art is defined by its lack of definition. So that's what this whole presentation is about. So this was the first one that, we're kind of going in chronological order. This was hilarious. This is Marcel Duchamp just took a picture of the Mona Lisa, drew a mustache and beard on it, and there's the title. And as you're reading, you can see that it's a play on words, a French pun. And right, so this is considered art. This is a piece of work. This is appropriation art. So I'll let you read that for a minute, and then I will go forward. Okay. Now we're going to go down a rabbit hole. This first one is not appropriation, obviously. This is Géricault's The Raft of the Medusa, classic historical painting. I have studied it so much throughout my years in school, and I started to become obsessed with it. And what I found is that there are a lot of versions of this painting, and that's what I'm going to show you. And then once we get to a very particular artist on this rabbit hole, we're going to go to another side rabbit hole to see what this artist does, and then we'll come back around. So here again here it is, the Raft of the Medusa, Géricault's beautiful, iconic painting, which is, and that's the other thing I want to say, a lot of these categories have a lot of overlap. We're not in the protest art section yet, and we will be, but this painting is all about a protest, a huge protest against the government and what was going on at the time. Oh gosh. Okay, here it is. Give you a scale, the size of the painting at the Louvre. Okay, Max Ernst. This is his version of that painting. So the question I ask myself when I look at these things, is this appropriation? Is it homage? And does it matter? But either way, Max Ernst was inspired enough to make a painting and even use use it in the title. Go to the next one now. Frank Stella. I saw this at the Whitney. Might have been 2016 or 17. I can't remember. I think it was, I don't remember if it was, I don't think it was the inaugural show. I can't remember. I'm sorry. But here we go. Here's Frank Stella's Raft of the Medusa Part 1. I tried to find the other parts to show you, but this was all I could find. I stood in front of this thing a really long time trying to get it. And I started to see maybe the diagonal shapes and the triangles. And I thought maybe that's just part of it. But I think there's a much deeper meaning to him as an artist that I couldn't see, and it doesn't matter. Martin Kippenberger. Now, in some of the works I'm going to show you, I'll have some background, and other ones, like I said, we're going to just go right through. Just let you drink it in. Go to the next one. Now, this one I actually saw in person. I think this is hilarious. This is made with Bosco chocolate sauce and a needle on a light box. And it is Vic Muniz's Raft of the Medusas. Sometimes you just don't even have to leave your kitchen, you know? Okay, I'm going to move on. Now, here is that side rabbit hole we're going to go down. Jose Manuel Ballester. He's pretty amazing. Yeah, I think I showed one of these to Bob during one of his workshops, Bob Moore. So I'd like to read this. Ballester's search for the poetics of empty space has led to this series, Espacios Ocultos, hidden spaces comprising reinterpretations of masterpieces from art history, which he reworks by digitally altering photographic images of these earlier paintings to produce disquieting absences. So again, here's the original, Géricault's Raft of the Medusa, and here's what this artist does to classic paintings. He removes all of the figures. And I got chills every time I just look at these paintings, because if you go back and look, he is imagining and trying to figure out, probably very technically, light sources, subject matter that you can't see because of all the figures. And I think I'm just amazed by his work. Now we're going to go away from Raft of the Medusa so you can see all the other classics, or a good portion of the ones that he's done as well. And then we'll come back. Birth of Venus. And I like to play a game of trying to find the light, again, the light sources, and you know, what he imagined would be under her foot, the trees, the horizon line behind the figures on the right, the clouds. I mean, there's a lot of creative license going on while staying true to the essence of the original painting. You know this one. What I found interesting about this one is the center towards the bottom of the Last Supper. I wonder why he removed that, whatever that is. I'm not sure. It looks like a pedestal, or I'm not sure what that is, but for some reason that might be obvious. Yeah.
A door. That's
It's a
a
door.
door.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's a door. You're welcome. I think it's a convent in Italy somewhere. I'm
Oh, so
pretty
that's an
sure.
actual door that's over the roof of the door. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. Thank you for that. Because this is one of the things I wanted to say in the beginning to everyone who's watching it now or in the future on the recording. I'm trying to tell you everything that I've learned, and I'm giving you some of my opinion and impressions. And if I get anything wrong or I leave something out that you think is important, please don't hesitate to let me know. I'll include my email address in the resources list. And yeah, I would love to know if I got anything wrong, or again, if you think I've left something out. Okay, Wernicke. Now this one, I thought it was interesting. Again, hunting for the figures. There is, I'll use, you can see my, yeah, this. I don't know if that's clearly not a figure, if we're literally following what Ballister is doing by removing the figures according to his statement. So this, I don't know if this is a figure or not, or he interpreted it that way, but it's the one thing that was left in there. And it also shows how intertwined it is with the figure, and how interesting that he chose to leave that behind. Las Meninas. Now, I don't know how many of you have studied this painting, but this comes up a lot in art history classes when you're in school. Just what's going on and the almost impossibility of all the levels of observation and the controversy of how we are observing and being observed at the same time. And who are we? And it's like, is it we, or are they looking at someone behind us? You know, that this is part of the technical analysis discussion of this painting. And after looking at it for hours in classes, and maybe it's obvious to some people, but it isn't so obvious. It wasn't to me and some of my classmates. What I love is that he really, Ballister, got in there and removed all the figures. So go all the way to the back and you'll see the guy in the stairs. But the controversy in the art history classes are that the two people all the way in the back in the mirror are the people that everybody in the forefront are looking at, and Ballister removed them. So they are figures in the painting, but they're not really in this space. So it's just interesting to me, the choices he keeps making. Okay, and Goya's the 3rd of May. And this painting will come back later on when we get to, I forget which category, Vermeer. This painting had a couple of titles, and the most common one was the Allegory of Painting, which is why it's up there. What's fun about this one is Ballister got to actually create what he imagined a Vermeer painting would be, at least the preliminary painting. Because we can't see that, body's in the way. All right, now we're back. We're out of Ballister and we're back to the Raft of the Medusa versions. Louise Fishman. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to move on, because even though I might be going a little faster than we would all like, I don't want to startle you and just suddenly take it out of your view. So I'll let you know when I'm moving on, which is now. This one is one of my absolute favorites, Performance Troupe, Bruce High Quality Foundation. I think this is hilarious. I mean, our options as artists are limitless of what we can do to make something our own. I think this is what this one really proves. And the chocolate sauce, right? Peter Saul, having a good old time. Okay, I'm going to move on. And this one is not so easily noticeable. I had to tell you what it was going on because the painting references two great works, Rafter the Medusa and The Great Wave. And the novelty of this is, it, like it says, and she had a staff. She had about 5 people helping her, I think, from the pictures that I saw. This entire work was drawn with a silver pen, you know, until they ran out. Another silver pen, of course, would pop up. Labor of love, I would imagine. Okay, moving on. And then, of course, Jeff Koons. This show has a bit of a story. I was in my undergrad at Mason Gross at Rutgers University, and I was in a sculpture class, and the director of the sculpture department, Patrick Strezelik, we all went on a trip. We went to see this painting in New York. And we got there, and every single, I don't know if anybody here saw this show, all of the paintings, you know, we had Mona Lisa and I can't even remember, but every classic painting you ever heard of was there, filling the walls, completely perfectly reproduced. The one of the Mona Lisa, every crack in the varnish was reproduced. It was uncanny. And every single painting had one of these metallic blue balls at that level on every painting. And we were walking around, and I was getting really agitated, as was my professor. And I looked at him and I said, "Are these paintings for sale?" And he says, "Yeah, it looks like it." And I said, "How can that be? How can this be possible? How is this legal?" And so at the time, one of his former students was the studio manager for Jeff Koons in his studio. And Patrick, being who he was able to text this man and ask him the question while we were viewing the show. It's like, how is this possible? This makes no sense. And he told my professor that the only copyright rules at that point, what is this? Yeah, 2014, 2015, is that as long as you change the scale, you do not reproduce it in its original authentic scale, that you can do whatever you want. So the Mona Lisa was rendered much larger, and that's all you had to do. And it was disconcerting to us. Okay, I'm gonna move on. All right, now this is Jasper Johns, and I don't know how much you could say he's appropriating, because I think the American flag is, you know, pretty much, what's that word? What's that term? Free license kind of thing, I think. And so I'm just showing you this for the next artist more than anything else. I'll let you read a little bit at the bottom there about him. He did a lot with the American flag. And I'm going to get ready to move on so you can see why I'm showing you this. The next artist is Richard Pettibone, who literally copied Jasper John's copy of the flag. And I could read some of this to you, that he replicates in miniature works by famous artists, all pocket-sized, to evoke the intimacy of the model trains he loved as a child, and it had cited considerable controversy. And they feel that he has paved the way for 1980s appropriation art. Okay, gonna move on. All right, this is not a video, I'm just showing you the still shots of this video. A link to this video will be in the resources. What she does in her studio is she projects, at least in this body of work, she projects these religious paintings and traces over them, as you'll see. And then she has come up with, I didn't really delve into it because I kind of like to respect the process of artists. I mean, if I could look into it and read about exactly how she does what I'm about to show you. She made this viscous material that she drips down over that drawing, and it dries and it hardens, and that's how she appropriates the piece. And then she uses like a crowbar and with assistance, and peels it off the wall, lays it on the floor, and gets it ready to go into the gallery. And you can see all that in this 6-minute video, which I'll provide in the resources. And now I'm going to go on a whole tear about Vincent Desiderio. Probably a lot of people here probably knew him or know him because he's local, or he was. I took a master class with him at the New York Academy of Art for a long weekend. It was 2 days, 6 hours each day. So it was 12 hours total. And we got to spend the beginning of the class talking to him about his work, and we were looking at slides. And we got to the picture of this painting, Cocaine, which you can read while I'm talking about how what it means. And this was, I believe, a 10-year painting. And the question is, this is a painting, as you're about to see, of a whole bunch of fine art books, historic books that are opened up all over the scene. I'm going to move it in a minute so you can finish reading. And I say to myself, is this appropriation, or are you just painting open books because they're subject matter in your painting? I don't, again, does it matter? But it falls into the realm of this. So this is the painting, and you might be familiar with it. But you right away, you can see, if you look, the first thing that pops out that's familiar is, I don't think I can use my cursor when I'm in this, little bit to the left, kind of just below the table, you can see the girl with the pearl earring. It's pretty recognizable. And I remember we were sitting there looking at the painting with him, and I was just completely fan geeked out, and it just seemed like such an insurmountable work. And I asked him, how did you do it? I see the Mondrian now too, a little bit to the right, towards the front. Yeah, I never see the same thing twice when I look at this. And, Magritte's pipe is there, his peep. So I was just in awe. I cannot believe how long it took you this long, because you had to depict all of these, fine details. And he was like, no, not at all. It's an illusion because of how far away you are from the painting. He said, there's maybe 3 or 4 brush strokes to get the face of the girl with the pearl earring. And one of the things that you learn is that, and people might know this, but I didn't know this till I went to school, that you don't have to give so much away when you make a work. You put down just enough if it's something familiar, and the human eye will fill in the rest. And that is the vehicle he used for pretty much all of these images in this painting. Because I know what the girl with the pearl earring looks like, my eye goes right to that, and I just know that that's what it is. And you'll see a detail of it later. I'm going to move on. So I found this of him online working on it, which is nice. Now here's a close-up of that. See, it's not highly rendered. It's just enough. Now here's where I'll go into what the surprises that are going to come for this one is. While we were talking, I told him I wanted to see that painting so badly, and where is this painting? And he said it was being held hostage, his words, in storage at the Hirshhorn in DC. And I asked him, well, how am I going to see it? What can I do? And he said, you have a right. You can call them up and you can tell them, any museum, ask them, I would like to see this painting that you have in storage, and you can try to make an appointment. And I called them up. It took about a year just because they were doing construction and renovations, and made plans and went. And at the same time, it turned out the National Gallery was having a Tintoretto show. So it was a perfect day. And you're gonna see Tina in this picture coming up, because we did it. We went and we got to see the painting in storage. So there it is. Again, getting chills right now, just remembering what it was like to walk through these vaults with my 4 friends and the curator. I think she was a curator, I'm not sure. And this is how they store the paintings, and if they didn't know, and that's where this painting lives. And to give you some scale, I believe there you go. There we are, standing in front of the painting. I'm absolutely breathless. I can't breathe for a couple hours. And she really, you can see, she let us get really close. And that's how I was able to, I took those pictures of the close-ups at the bottom. And I think what's coming up next is an Instagram conversation. I posted these pictures on my Instagram, took a chance and tagged Vincent. Hadn't seen him in 5 years. I only met him those 2 days. And, you never know if somebody's going to remember you or not. But I posted it, I tagged him, and we had a conversation. So I'll read it to you if you don't mind. 4 years ago, I had a master class with the master. He said I could ask for a viewing, and here it is. The privilege was astounding. Doesn't get any better than Tintoretto at the National Gallery, then a walk across the mall to the Hirshhorn for Desiderio. Perfect day with friends. He comes right back and he said, thank you, Dori. I've never seen it in storage. Free cocaine. And I said, I asked while I was there when it would be out and on view, and it was suggested that you might know. And he said, thanks, Dori. Releasing it from the prison of storage is their decision. They just won't do it. Free cocaine. And then I thought, well, maybe that should be a hashtag, and I tagged it. So this is one of my happy moments in life, was to have this conversation with my teacher. So I'm going to move on. And to end the appropriation section of our presentation, I wanted to show you this. If you can see what it says on the picture to the right, it says, "Don't use my brown face to cover your white ass." And this is an Indigenous perspective about appropriation, which I had not considered. So I wanted to include it. And I think I could read this. "I remember the first year of art school and how Central European art was. For us as Indigenous students sitting in that class, we felt like our art wasn't represented. But for non-Indigenous students, they were learning that Indigenous art is not important. Simultaneously, we learned about Picasso and how he appropriated African masks to create the Cubist visualities, or visualties, I'm not sure about that word, he would become famous for. So students are learning not only that appropriation is okay, but that some of Western art's most famous artists appropriated from other cultures. By positioning Picasso as one of the greats in Westernized art history canons, non-Indigenous students end up internalizing and normalizing a culture of appropriation within contemporary art." So as I'm putting this presentation together and looking at the joys of a potential appropriation, or the freedom of that, I have to consider this and just make sure that, you know, there's a respect and an honoring, or a choosing to not appropriate something, and just case by case basis, and just, you know, be honorable and considerate in what you're doing. Gonna move on. Okay, so this is funny for me, because anybody who's gone to a perfume counter or a candle store and you smell a bunch of scents, and then all of a sudden your nose gets burned out and you can't smell anything anymore, and they usually have a jar of coffee beans, and you smell the coffee beans and it has some sort of chemical reaction with your sinuses, and it cleanses your nasal passages so that you can smell again. And I always wondered, when I've gone to a show that was denser than I thought it would, and I had 3 or 4 other shows I wanted to go see that same day, and I'm like, what is the visual equivalent? The coffee beans, you know, how can I look at a white wall? Can I go for a walk? And then I said, well, let's just make it literal. So these are your visual coffee beans to take you down from that whole section before we go into the next, and you will see them again, because this is a dense presentation. So we're going to move on. Protest art is a broad term that refers to creative works that concern or are produced by activists and social movements. Now, one of the best classes I ever took in my undergrad was Humor and Subversion, the artist as provocateur. And this was one of the signs for the class. And it was a summer class, and it was one of the best. Again, I can't tell you how much I learned. What I loved about it was that my professor, she was there at the Zimmerli Art Museum, which is known for its Russian and Soviet nonconformist art collection. It's a lot, like 22,000 pieces. And she was going after her doctorate. She is now a gallery director in Estonia. And the thing I really appreciated, and this was back in 2015, she said, you're not going to see any protest art from this country. You're going to see protest art from around the world, because I'm sure the stuff that you haven't heard of. So that's what the class was, and this is what I'm going to share with you now. Here comes the second poster, which is one of the best pictures I've ever seen. This is such an amazing photograph for a period, and then to get me to sign up for the class. I'll let you look at that for a moment. Actually, so amazing for today. Okay, moving on. All right, so here we go, back to Vermeer. I saw this painting at the Zimmerli when they were having a show. So it is definitely a protest art, and I am not going to dive into this because, and I should have said this in the beginning, there are a lot of subjects in this presentation plus singular works that I could do a 2-hour presentation on, and this is one of them. I did a technical analysis for this painting for a paper for this class, and it just, all the symbolism is all dealing with the protests behind it, but it's also, excuse me, also an appropriation. Excuse me. So that's where the an example of the overlaps between the subjects. Moving on, and here we're up close to see what happened here. It's just amazing how something classic can inform so many people over the years in so many ways. How things get into your work. I mean, this is obviously, but other ways that are more subtle as well. Moving on. Okay, High Red Center Collective. I want to talk about this for a minute. The games were utilized to show honorable Japan, I'm sorry, that is the Olympics in 1964. Honorable Japan as a prosperous international player, an economic miracle 2 decades after the defeat in World War II. Tokyo had scrambled to, excuse me, to convey this impression with modernization and beautification projects to impress for the Olympics, such as a series of new highways. This is what High Red Center Collective's cleaning event sought to reveal and ridicule. What they were doing is they put on lab coats. They were walking around with toothbrushes and little like paper towels, and outside of where, you know, is it Olympic City or whatever the city was called at the time, they started scrubbing the cracks in the sidewalks and acting like they just were doing that, and that was their protest, because what they were doing is they were kicking people out of the town, eminent domain style, in order to the surrounding areas, in order to make it look more, as they said, modernized and beautified. If you weren't wealthy enough, or you didn't look good enough, or your house wasn't nice enough, then they didn't want to give that impression. So this was a protest, and this was in '64, and it's amazing to see. And this is one picture. I'll show you some more, but this one is where a police officer didn't stop them because it looked so official. Very effective. And people just walking by. Okay, and the Guerrilla Girls. If you don't know, the Guerrilla Girls are a bunch of female artists who hid their identities. I believe we know who they are now, and there are so many more of them, but these were the original 5. And you'll see 2 examples of their work next. And I will let you read this, because this is so much fun. The first time I saw this poster was at the Princeton Museum of Art, and I walked in the door through the gift shop, up the stairs, and there it was, right there in between the first and the second floor. And these were done in 1988. You get the idea. The last one is hilarious. Getting your picture in the art magazines wearing a gorilla suit. So I'm going to move on to the next one. This one's pretty famous. I think I should say that out loud. Less than 5% of the artists in the modern art sections are women, but 85% of the nudes are female. I think that's, I don't know, I haven't seen the percentages lately. They tally it up every now and then, every 5 years or so. And sometimes it gets worse, sometimes it gets better. I don't know where we are at the moment. I should have looked that up. Okay, Diamanda Galas. This is one of those things that I could spend 2 hours on, so I'm not going to do it. And I'll let you read, and I'll tell you the deep dive I did into this is that during the AIDS crisis, she was horrified by how the church, whoops, didn't mean to go that fast, so sorry about that. I startled you. She was so upset that how hypocritical the church was, saying that basically AIDS was here for a reason, for a lifestyle commentary and a smiting, so to speak. And she didn't just go and do this, she asked for permission. And the thing that I would get into if I had the time to talk about it was how she was talking to Cardinal O'Connor at the time and saying that she needed to do this performance to highlight the hypocrisy of the church's stance. And Cardinal O'Connor was very sympathetic, and who was even more sympathetic, and please forgive me, I am not a religious person, I wasn't raised religious, I don't know the name of the next superior up, but Cardinal O'Connor's superior was also very compassionate and gave their permission for her to go onto the church, St. Patrick's, I believe, and do the thing that I just moved over to by mistake that you're about to see. So we'll go there now. She did a performance of very guttural, lamentation, wailing vocal performance called The Plague Mass. You can see the poster at the bottom right. And that was in 1990. And it was 2 days. And she covered herself in blood in the church. And again, what I found so amazing and heartening is that the church saw how much she was suffering and how much everyone else was suffering and what she was trying to do. And they gave her permission simply to help her assuage her suffering and to help people. And that I was not expecting that. So I'm very humbled by their openness to accommodate her as an artist. So I'll move on. Okay, now this is more recent. The Dana Schutz Emmett Till painting and the protest by Parker Bright at the Whitney Museum. I was in undergrad when this was going on, and I got to tell you, my professor of contemporary art was John Yao, and he is a critic who writes for Hyperallergic, and he is formidable, and he is an activist and an artist and a poet, and he was adamant that we spent 4 weeks, an entire like 3-4 hour class for 4 weeks discussing this controversy. Dana Schutz did a painting of Emmett Till in the casket from 1955. And if you don't know the story, Emmett Till was brutalized horribly by the police, and his mother buried him in an open casket so that people could see what they did to him and did to his young face. And it's horrific. And we were in that class for 4 weeks, and we were looking up on a big screen in a big auditorium classroom of a picture of Emmett Till's face for real, the forensic photo from the casket, and right next to the painting that I'm about to show you. And we were talking because it was, sorry, I'm stuttering over this. There was such a controversy about this. Here's the painting. And what you can't see in this painting, and it was at the Whitney Biennial in 2016, and there's a bird outside, so sorry about that. He's saying hello, he or she, not sure. You can't see it, is how visceral this painting is when you get up in front of it. The gash that is being portrayed abstractly on the face, on his face, is very deep paint. And I mean, I could be impasto, I'm not sure, but it's thick, like an inch or two off the canvas. And then like the palette knife is, it's a literal cut. You can see into it, and it's visceral, and it's hard to experience. The controversy was, as I'll go to the protest, what happened next. Parker Bright, Black Death spectacle. That's what they were accusing her of. And lots of, again, 4 weeks of discussion and looking at the news and reading all the articles that all the art houses were writing. Dana Schutz said that she was a new mother, and she was feeling compassion and for Emmett Till and his mother's choice to get the word out by doing that back in the day. And she felt that she was meeting people who didn't know about Emmett Till, so she felt the need that this was her way to bring it forward. And the controversy is that she shouldn't have done this. Now, she never said the painting was for sale, but at the same time, the two curators at the Whitney Biennial went into her studio and insisted on bringing the painting into the show. So it just went around and around, and there was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of demands to not only take the painting down, but have it destroyed. So there was a lot of, again, back and forth about, now we're talking about censorship and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. So I don't want to spend any more time on this, just because, again, I could spend days talking about this, but there's a lot you could read about it if you're interested. So again, coffee beans, that was heavy, that was deep. And I implore you, if you're interested, please read about this. The person who started the petition was a woman named Hannah Black. And you'll read a lot of things about how she started a movement to talk about this situation. All right, we're going to go on to the next one. Outsider art. Now this is dense, this is heavy, so I'm really going to kind of go through this one and just show you examples of the artists and all the different kinds of outsider art. But it all started with Jean Dubuffet's calling it, outsider art is art brut. And that's how we're going to start. Okay, I'll let you read that for a minute. Yeah, artists who have not had any formal training, who have never been part of an art establishment. Again, that's just a beginning definition to, how should I say, cater to a need of inclusion, I think. All right. Also, you could read this, literally translated from French means raw art, so raw. And that we're all in the cooking process, but I think we will always all be in the cooking process, as Bob referenced in the beginning here. All right, so this is Jean's, one of his paintings. He was an artist of the people. The more banal a thing may be, the better it suits me, he said in 1945. Luckily, I do not consider myself exceptional in any way. In my paintings, I wish to recover the vision of an average and ordinary man. And there he is at work. I can't see the name. Aloise, I believe. I wanted to give you a little insight into her. She suffered from some kind of a breakdown. And I didn't want to give you a paragraph on that so much because I'd like you to see her for her work and not the condition. I just don't want her to be, I would rather show you about her process. So this is her work. I think it's interesting that the floral petals were occasionally mixed into toothpaste. That's fascinating to me and gives me lots of ideas. Inspiring. Moving on. Martin Ramirez. Yeah, this, I learned about him with John Yao. He worked on any kind of paper he could get his hands on. He was in a mental institution. And yeah, this is the epitome of his work. Salvage paper bags, saliva, potato starch, whatever he needed to work, he worked. I guess, and this piece was, I don't know, it's 3 years. I don't know if I got that right. Pardon me if I didn't. Okay, Judith Scott. I just learned about her as when I was putting this together. Fiber artist, incredible knotting technique. There's a link in the resources where you can watch a video about where we'll go to next about her work. She was deaf and couldn't communicate, and prolific artist, incredible. She just wrapping and protecting and concealing things. I'm going to move on. Okay, we're moving on to the next one. This is a term more used in Europe, marginal art or art singulier, relating to the works of artists, usually, but not exclusively self-taught, that are close to art brut and outsider artists. So again, lots of overlap and a lot of people making categories, naming artists after they've seen their work. Sometimes I wonder to make them fit a category so they can be labeled, but I think it helps us try to contemplate everything. The artists themselves are not putting themselves in these categories, please know that. So here we go. All right, yeah, this is the art singulier. And in, yeah, the house of she who paints. This is, I'm just going to go through this quickly, but you can look through the references. I just think this is a really exciting picture to look at and to see the labor, the rigor of her work. And she just needs, sometimes you just need to make things, you know? Yeah, and this piece and this work of hers did span those 20 years. Okay, next. Raymond Reynaud, the explosion of the CEOs of consumption. Again, I apologize, I don't have the materials for this. It was really hard to find. But again, he's considered an outsider. Gonna move on. Ori Saban. And move on to the next one. Okay, now outsider art, folk art, contemporary art, quilting, ornamental picture framing. Artists are frequently self-taught as their work is often developed in isolation or in small communities across the country. Folk art can cover anything from chainsaw animals to hubcap buildings, as well as the work of artists who would easily fall into the realm of outsider art. Again, the overlap. So here we have Sam Doyle, painting on tin. Yeah, surrounded by his work, sitting outside. It was nice to be able to find pictures of the artists we're about to see. Moving on. William Hawkins, enamel paint on board. I was only able to find 3 of his, but I'm only going to show you one again so that we can keep moving. And I was really drawn by this one, the Santa Sofia Mosque. You don't see that subject matter very often. And I took a Byzantine art and architecture class when I was at Rutgers as well. So I was drawn to this one especially, personally. Moving on. Now, Mose, I think it's Mose because there's no accent on the E, Tolliver. I was really drawn in by this painting. I looked at this painting and it made me want to go make something. And there's another artist coming up that got me in the same way. But I love the title, Fierce Self-Portrait. Yeah, there's something very captivating about this painting that draws me in. So sorry that we have to move on. Hold on a second. Okay. And now, again, more overlap. Self-taught, a popular, this was a protest actually to the term outsider art, it seems. A popular term in the US which avoids the stigmas that some feel are attached to the outsider art definition. Many American artists are already pushed to the outer limits of society as a result of prejudice and feel this term offers more dignity, and I concur. So we've got Mr. Imagination, also known as Gregory Warmack. Bottle caps and mirror on wood on the left side, and on the right, I couldn't find more information on this piece, but I love it. It is made from a brush. If you look at the top, carved out, I believe there's wood somewhere, and I think there's ceramic as well. But I wanted to throw in a second work of his because he's pretty magnificent. Moving on. Thornton Dial. Look at him. This man is an artist on fire. He is so inspiring, and his work, again, makes me want to I wanted to stop putting the presentation together, and I wanted to go run and make something. Stars of everything. And look at the materials list. He's working with what he has around him. It's a painting, it's a collage, it's an assemblage, it's everything. And it's a nice size. So drink that in for another minute and then we'll move on. Okay. Oh, good, I showed you more, yay. Okay, yep, 2 more pieces. Strange Fruit on the left. The title and the subject matter is striking and it hurts, and that's the point. And there, you know, we've got appropriation on the title of a song. So again, we work how we work, what we do. And bottom right, Life and Death of the Moonshine Man. Stuffed animal, corrugated tin, found metal, carpet, wire, mop, gloves, clothing, doll, plate, enamel, spray paint, and splash zone compound. Keep saying I have to look that up. I'm not sure what that is. So we're going to move on. Now, if you have a good eye, you might have seen this yourself. I first encountered this piece when I always get it confused to where I went to school. Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art, the Philadelphia Museum of Art. There you go. If you walk past, you get through all of the beautiful Paul Revere silverware and items, and then you go to the back of this, at least during the year that I went and saw this, you will see in a big, huge vitrine, this gorgeous, huge pot. And this man was a slave. And look at the pot says, you know, inscribed with his name. And he made this pot and it is huge. It's I'd say 2/3 my height, and I'm like 5'5". And as a person who has learned how to throw pottery in the past, I am amazed at the skill and the facility of being able to build a pot so beautiful and huge. And this is obviously a self-taught person, and it's interesting that it's in a museum and it's kind of hidden in the back. And I kind of wish, I don't know where it is now. I'd love to see that it was elevated and brought out front somewhere else. But at least it's in the museum, right? Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a bad thing. I'm not sure. Gonna move on. Okay, naive art. You thought that we were done with all the subcategories. This term refers to untrained artists who depict largely realistic scenes, often in skilled detail with people, animals, and other aspects of the observed world, sometimes combined with fantasy images. They often aspire to normal artistic status and may often be seen as quite sophisticated amateurs verging on professionalism. I hope that's me. And we know who this is. I had to start with Grandma Moses. 1946, Oil on Campus. Yeah, it's a really nice picture. Can I move on? John Kane, learned about him while I was researching for this. Pittsburgh's painter. John Kane helped build industrial Pittsburgh. Then, as a complete unknown, his work was accepted into the 1927 Carnegie International, making him the first self-taught artist to be recognized by the American art establishment, and that would be the Canon. His muse, his adopted city. Very nice painting. Really nice grasp of depth and perspective. I really do feel I could walk into that painting. Okay, moving on. Ivan Generalik, I'm not sure. Red Cow, again, he showed up on a list of a Naïve Art artist, and I'm starting to see kind of a pattern. Croatian painter, remembered for his highly stylized, vibrant, and almost hallucinatory landscapes of rural farm life. There he is down at the bottom right. And I'm going to move on. And we have Rousseau. Now, I believe I think my memory serves from Grounds for Sculpture and Appropriation, I could have shown a picture of one of his paintings brought to life in the woods. I think that's what I saw there. And we're going to move on. Okay, visionary art, intuitive art. These are fairly general terms used together. They can include much urban folk art of the third world, as well as works based on religious experiences and visions. They avoid the specifics of outsider art or folk art and can also be used in conjunction with self-taught. The artist's mission is to make the soul perceptible. Our scientific materialistic culture trains us to develop the eyes of outer perception. Visionary art encourages the development of our inner sight. To find the visionary realm, we use the intuitive inner eye, the eye of contemplation, the eye of the soul, Alex Gray, who you will see some of his work. The American Visionary Art Museum in Baltimore, which I now need to go see, spotlights the work of self-taught artists outside the mainstream, again, outside the canon. America's official National Museum, Education Center, and repository for self-taught and intuitive artistry. And one thing I want to say again, I meant to say in the beginning, I am literally on the whiff of everything. I'm just showing you a whiff of all of the possibilities out there. There is so much to explore. Okay, Brenda Davis. She had a very, very traumatic life, a lot of hard things she had to go through. And she started to have dreams. And then she was told to draw her dreams. And she did. And her dreams at night began to dictate what she was to draw. The symbolic meanings and titles of works also come with these dreams. They won't let go of me until I get it down on paper, she said. Brenda's art was discovered and became pursued by collectors. So guess what? Now we're in the canon, and I'm very happy for her. Permanent marker on paper. Moving forward. Okay, Alex Gray. This is one of my favorite paintings of his. It is absolutely huge. It's a triptych. Alex Gray, he studied to be a doctor, I believe, and then became a medical illustrator, and then took LSD and became an artist. And then the left, this is called The Journey of the Wounded Healer, and the left is all about creation, DNA, the body, how everything, you can see the spiral of DNA in the back. And then in the second one this is life, what happens, and then everything gets blown apart and the trials of what you go through in life. And then you come back together if you're lucky, and now you're a wounded healer, and that's the right side. And there's, again, 2 hours I could spend on this painting alone. I spent a lot of time in front of this actual painting in New York, but I'm going to move on. Hilma af Klint, we're going to be here for a minute. Every time, I shouldn't say that. I'd say 3 or 4 times in my undergrad, when you are in a class and you have professors and you have critiques, people are always giving you references of work they think that you might be interested in based on looking at your work and finding threads and similarities. And a couple of times people told me that I should know about Hilma, and she and I are very different. She was definitely channeling and into seances, and had visions and very, how should I say, Joan of Arc in a way, kind of things. That is not what happens to me. I'm sometimes can be very intuitive, but I still understand why, because of some of the subject matter. I'll be painting the constellations in the sky, or maybe something to do with the Fibonacci spiral or chakras or something like that, and people will automatically think that it's funny. Anyway, I do very much appreciate her work, and I'll go see it anytime I can. What's so fascinating about her is, as you'll see through these bullet points, she is the original abstract expressionist. The reason nobody ever knew about her, one, she's a woman. Number two, at the time, right? She, as you'll see in the next slide, she hid her paintings and put it in her will that the world was not ready for her work because of the things that she says she was channeling and translating into paintings. And then the world got to see her work. And during that whole time that her work was not being shown, the abstract expressionists blossomed. And then from then until just recently, she's now starting to get the recognition that she deserves. Yeah, see, after 3 decades, her paintings and works on paper received serious attention. And now you'll see pictures that this is the show I went to, and I took my pictures. The entire Guggenheim. She was prolific. But you can get an idea of the scale of the large paintings, which we're going to see. So the fan geek for me was my history book, was this painting was on the cover, and the next thing I knew, that's my picture. I'm standing in front of this. I wish I'd put the size in. It's really huge, but you'll get an idea of the scale next. There's another one, the 10, no, I didn't put the size. Gonna go through. There you go. That'll give you an idea of the scale. This is but one room at the Guggenheim. Right, so what I learned, again, through this research that I didn't know is oil on paper, and then the paper was glued to canvas. Okay, moving on to grassroots art is created by self-taught individuals, again, in overlap, usually during their retirement years. That's funny. Often driven by a vision. They work for many years creating an environment which is meant to be viewed as a whole. Many times the artist is inspired by seemingly useless recycled items. So we learned about Ferdinand Cheval. 33 years he built this. Now there's going to be a lot of text, and I'm not going to read it all, but I will highlight things for you. I wanted you to see this first, but the stones were river wash pebbles, porous tufa, not sure what that is, and fossils he was finding. And what you'll see is, the story goes, he tripped over this weird rock, this sandstone, and that's the rock, or something like the rock on the left. And as he said in the story, my foot caught on something that sent me stumbling a few meters away, and I wanted to know the cause. In a dream, I had built a palace, a castle, or caves. I cannot express it well. I told no one about it for fear of being ridiculed, and I felt ridiculous myself. Then 15 years later, when I had almost forgotten my dream, when I wasn't thinking of it at all, my foot reminded me of it. And he just started to build this, and again, 30 years. I'll go back so you can see the castle again. And this is something you can actually go view now. I think you can still have access to it. 10,000 days, 93,000 hours, 33 years of struggle. Let those who think they can do better try. I wasn't sure I was going to put that in there, but those are his words, and I wanted him to speak. So we're going to move on to the next one, which is a similar feat. Naqshband, I apologize if I mangled that name. He had been the foremost self-taught artist in the world, and his extraordinary achievement in building the 25-acre rock garden, complete with 2,000 statues, waterfalls, and amphitheaters, is unsurpassed. This is the text from that site. I referenced the site. You get the idea. Gonna move, and this one, of course, I live very nearby it. It reminds me of the oh my God, why can't I think of it? On South Street. I'm brain dead right now. You all know what I'm talking about. If anybody wants to unmute and remind me.
The Magic Garden.
Magic Gardens.
Thank you. I'm sure
Talking
it was
about
a
Isaiah.
chorus. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Here you go. Okay, moving on. Oh yeah, more here. I just wanted to see some of the other things. If there's any things I can pick out before you move on. Oh yeah, this is really interesting. He was, again, building it, rogue on abandoned property and building it and hiding it in secrecy. And then when after his normal working day, Sean worked at night in total secrecy for fear of being discovered by the authorities. When the authorities did discover the garden, this never happens. The local government officials were thrown into turmoil. Their creation was completely illegal, a development in a forbidden area, which by rights should be demolished. The outcome, however, was the enlightened decision to give him a salary so that he could concentrate full-time on his work, plus a workforce of 50 laborers. So, if that doesn't give you an idea right now to look for an abandoned lot somewhere under the cover of night, I don't know what will. One can always hope. Okay, coffee beans. We're coming to the end. So take a breath, take a sip of water. That's me. And I will move on. So we have 2 categories, and they're much shorter than the outsider art was the longest one. Expanded painting. So this is from a very deep scholarly article that I confess Full disclosure, I was not able to finish reading in time. And again, I've been trying to read this article for 2 years. It's thick. So I provided a link if you feel like it. Today's art world can be characterized by what, for lack of a better term, is called pluralism. The term pluralism designates at least two different tendencies. On the one hand, it signals the fact that there are no dominant art styles these days, and that to continue searching for a pure language in any visual medium can become a fruitless task. On the other hand, pluralism is also used to describe an attitude of anything goes that leaves qualitative concerns aside in favor of a kind of tolerance that accepts everything as equally valid. As the formal boundaries tumble, the being of painting expands to become a kind of total art, incorporating all other media, including sculpture, video, and performance. Ontologically, painting is understood as an object of aesthetic discourse that in turn reflects historical states of being. Now, me personally, I identify as an oil painter specifically, and I haven't painted with oils for 15 months because I don't have good ventilation here. So everything I make, I'm painting, no matter what I'm using. And that is absolutely validated in the Canon, in the fine art school. And how many times have we all heard that painting is dead? And I really appreciate the idea of expanding painting for this reason and many reasons. So I'll move on now. Sam Gilliam. Is that a painting? Is he painting? Yes. It's acrylic on canvas, but it's not stretched, so it's still a painting. So we're just at the edges here. I have had the privilege to see some of his work in person. Not nearly enough. Moving to the next one. Eva Hess, sculpt metal over steel washers. The formalism of the fact that is in, a rectilinear shape and it's hung like a painting, it's a painting. Or maybe it just wants to be a painting. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Next one. Well, actually, before I go, just whatever the staining is or the discolorations, I don't want to call them that. That was shamey. The other colors that don't seem uniform at the bottom are part of the painting. And I would like to look into this further and find out what that is. Is that intentional? Did that happen by mistake? We'll see. Okay, Pino Galizio. The title is Industrial Painting, and this fascinated me. It was made using a, quote, painting machine, unquote, which extended the process of painting from the hand of the artist to a series of mechanical rollers that opened up the possibility of creating excessively long works. Galizio made a series of works in this format after experimenting with new techniques in his, quote, unquote, laboratory. 74 meters long. It is a painted canvas. Moving on. Okay, Natasha Das. I saw this show yesterday at Gross McLeaf. Thread started as a curiosity and necessity. The idea of layering and working with impasto through oil moves me. I began to see thread having the same effect on a surface. This curiosity, excuse me, took me on another journey. So I walk in, there's a painting. I get up close, I see it's all thread on oil. But it doesn't look like embroidery to me. It looks like it's paint. She's painting with thread. That's what it felt like to me. It's open now. I highly recommend you guys go see it. The work is so much fun. And this one, you'll get to see this one too. My little bird friend is back. Sorry about that. But that's thread. Posing as paint. Gonna move on. Yeah, the size is nice, 48-inch square. Coffee beans, and I think we're at the last section, which again won't be too long. There's a lot more we could do with expanded painting, but like I said, just a whiff. And I do believe it's something that's always evolving. This one's very malleable. Okay. We're ready. Takeaways. This is one of my favorites, and you will see why at the end. Felix Gonzalez Torres, the approximate 175 pounds of candy, and that is the instruction. that make up the work resembles the 175-pound body of Ross Laycock, the artist's boyfriend who died of AIDS in 1991. As each person takes a piece of candy, then in turn act as the AIDS virus, they in turn act as the AIDS virus, depleting Ross's body piece by piece, taking it away until there is nothing left. Felix Gonzalez Torres, who dedicated his artwork to the one he loves and lost, died in 1996 of AIDS. So I've encountered this work 2 times. It is an instruction, like Saul LeWitt, right? His conceptual work. It's an instruction to the curators to make a pile of candy in any way they'd like, to make sure it's always about 175 pounds. And it's always replenished. They keep, and you are to, it's a takeaway. You go, you view it, and you are to take a piece or more. And each time I did take a piece, and I saved the wrapper for a long time. And I love the interaction and the organicness of something like this. And then I ran into, and we're going to come into the show and tell portion of our presentation eventually when I stop sharing, if you want to see. I will show you pictures too, but I have the actual things if you want to see them. This goes down in history as one of the top 10 shows I ever saw at the Jewish Museum in 2016. Take Me, I'm Yours. And you walk in, it was the 2nd floor, and there was a rack with hooks and bazillion of these bags. And you walk in and you take a bag. In this highly unconventional exhibition, visitors are encouraged to participate, touch, and even take home works of art by 42 international and intergenerational artists, many of whom are creating new and site-specific works for the exhibition. This was so exciting because you become a part of the show. These are the first items I got to take. The 2 circles on the top are really strong magnets. The bottom right is just a pin, tomorrow better, I can't, whatever, you see what it says. Tomorrow better please God make, or make God please better tomorrow, or any way you want to read it. My favorite narcissist of all time is the artist who gave that pin away and made a pin, an enamel pin of his face. So of course I took one. Then there was a wall that somebody had professionally made garment tags that you would normally see a logo in your clothing, and put all these really lovely activist words on there. And you could take as many as you want. You can see that I did. Next is this one. Somebody made plaster casts of New York coffee cups. It's so much fun. This one. With silent lips, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. And the artist is Daniel Joseph Martinez. And this is one of those Mylar blankets that'll keep you warm. And there was a pie, you could just take one. Here's the other size. Oh no, well, let me see. Nope, this is the other one. This is another piece. I'm sorry. Let me go back so you can just look at that for a minute. I thought I put the back of it in there. I did. Sorry, it's to the right, not paying attention. Yeah, wanted you to see it. Okay, so this was fascinating. This had a docent there wearing white gloves, and there was a film projector, and it was a woman at the time. She had a pair of scissors. And the explanation, based on the color of the glass filter used by Joseph Cornell during the projection of his film Rose Hobart, composed of footage extracted, it's a mouthful, from George Melford's 1931 film East of Borneo, starring one of Joseph Cornell's muses, Rose Hobart. Cornell's film was first screened in '36 at Julian Levy Gallery, New York. The original glass filter is at Anthology Film Archives, New York. You walk up to the docent and you say, what's this? And they said, would you like a piece of this overexposed film? And you're like, yes, please. So that's what I got. They cut that off. You're pulling it out of the projector, cut off a snip, put it in an envelope, and off you go. Then there was, in another room, a table full of all these really beautiful high contrast vintage photos of pinups. And I took that one. I just thought it was such a gorgeous photo. My favorite. There was a bar and a wall, like a whole bunch of these ribbons just hanging. You couldn't see what they were. And I'm about to show you pictures of the room, and you could take one, and I did. And there were some other things that were there that I want to tell you about. There was one place where there was a floor fan that stood tall and a box of plastic bags. And what you were supposed to do is take a bag, fill it with New York air, tie it up, and leave. That's what you got to take away. And the other one that was kind of obnoxious, believe it or not, was the only thing in there that you had to pay for. And it was a gumball machine, and it was 25 cents. And it was a similar idea. It was those little gumball plastic containers filled with New York air, but you had to pay a quarter for it. And the artist was Yoko Ono. It was funny. Nobody paid the quarter that I saw. And what was the last one, which you'll see a picture of? There was a floor to almost ceiling pile of thrift store clothes that were completely clean, and you could just pull those clothes off that pile and take as much as you wanted. And everything in the show, I think I read an article about this, that they had at least 10,000 of each piece to be replenished for the entire length of the show. So here's a room, and in the middle is the pile of clothes that had been greatly diminished. It was much higher when I was there. All the way in the back on the right are those ribbons that I just showed you. And each station you'd walk around and had all these different things. There's one where you could make rubber stamps. And here's a back room. On the right is the wall that had all the clothing tags. That's where I took those. And you can see the coffee cups on the right, front, lower. And I don't remember a lot of the other stuff. It's overwhelming, but it was so much fun to explore. Okay, now this is how takeaways, this is the last thing I'll show you. Takeaways affected me. I was fortunate enough when I got out of grad school last year, I got to be in a group show in New York, and some people here might have heard me speak about it. And I wanted the show to have 2 takeaways. And again, I did an artist talk on this, and this is just 2 pieces of the entire installation. And I could, talk about this for hours, but I'm not going to. It's just on the left, and you're going to have to trust me for now. That's stretched paper pulp that has meaning over little stretchers. And I originally was going to just leave them on the linen, and people walk in and you are instructed if you want to take one of these, and the empty spaces are the ones that were taken. And I decided I wanted to leave an imprint left behind where the paintings were. And then that way, what's left behind is another piece. Because the way this was supposed to go was there was going to be an opening night. It would be announced that they're meant to take, and there were 21 of them, and I expected them all to be taken. But this show went up in October during COVID. There was no opening. And as the gallery slowly opened, one by one, distanced, a person would trickle in and take one. And that's why there's so many left. So they're in my storage unit. On the right, on the ground, is another takeaway. It was kind of an earth activist diatribe, and seed paper made of the same material on the left, and 3 plants that are from the United Plant Savers that are in danger of extinction into the seed paper, and you take that, you go home and you plant them, and that's the idea. But that's part of that presentation. So I think that might be the last slide. Let me check. Nope, here we go. One last story. What is contemporary art? Yeah, this is how I wanted to close. When I was in my my MFA at PAFA, I worked at the Brodsky Center for Paola Morciani, who is the director. And she identifies as a contemporary art curator. And we were having to install things. And a lot of us were using found objects. And a lot of us were using things like an old chair that might have horsehair stuffing or branches or twigs. And if you had to do that, and you thought that would be in a gallery in the building or in the museum, God forbid, you had to have a meeting with the conservator, Mary, who has retired, I believe. And there were instruction sheets of how to sterilize these things, because there are so many horror stories about bugs over time, or something that just hatches behind glass and nobody's prepared. So there are very strict rules that a lot of people might already know this, of materials you can use in a setting like that. So what I learned by talking to Mary is that conservators are at their wits' end of how are we ever going to be able to preserve some of these contemporary works. And that's one of the reasons it is thought, at least a couple of years ago, why museums do not acquire contemporary work and why they're not brought into the canon. It could be something as technical as that. And so we were pondering this question about, well, wait a minute, what about a painting? It's like, are we making things in contemporary world now? It's like, we're not considering about, I need to make this last 100 years. So I was talking to Paula, the contemporary curator, about this. And I asked her, I said, how do you feel about this? And she said, we're not trying to preserve any of the work we're making now. And I said, why not? And she goes, because we're making our work for each other. We're not making it to last 100 years from now. That is her definition of contemporary art. And that's what I wanted to end with. So thank you so much for listening to all of this. And let me see. Yep, that's where look, these are all the resources. So I will show you them later. So I'm going to stop sharing and see if I can do that. Find my cursor. I have to do that, right? Okay. There it is. Thank you. I hope, let's see. Wow. Oh, wow. Did we just do this in an hour and a half? Wow. Amazing.
Thank you so much, Dori.
Oh, thank you. I have no idea how anybody reacted, so I just would love anything you want to say or ask me. I'm here.
Well, I don't know about anyone else, but I kind of need some time to absorb all that.
Exactly.
Before I even come up with any questions. But I think there are a few of us that our numbers are small enough that I think we can just open up our mics.
Okay.
And ask our questions verbally.
Let me give you a little show and tell before you do. Here's the bag. Take me, I'm yours. So you can just see them, right here. Just see the size. We think about the questions, you can start talking. I'll just, here's the guy.
Yeah. And of course, if you're more comfortable with asking questions in the chat, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah.
But you're also welcome to unmute yourself and just speak up.
Yeah, you saw it all. If there's anything anybody wants to see, I'll just pull it out and show you. It's up to you. Because I know the pictures were better than me showing you.
We could also, and this is a thought that occurred to me while we were setting this up. We can also reconvene at a later date to talk about all this.
Sure, absolutely.
After we've had time to look over that list and look into some things, maybe that we wanted to get a deeper look at.
If you like, because I wanted to be very careful not to turn this into, don't make it a book report. You're not writing a research paper. This should be enjoyable. So I hope you don't feel obligated to look at any of the resources. Just please follow your desire and whatever you think you might want to check out. And then we can just have a nice conversation.
I have a question, Dori. Thank you for that very thoughtful presentation.
Oh, sure.
It was fascinating, and you're right, it was really dense. Yeah. And so these terms are new to me. I have gone to the Visionary Museum in Baltimore.
Really?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Wow.
And but when you went through all the very detailed categories, it went so much beyond visionary art. So that was really educational. But one term I've never heard before is expanded painting.
Yeah, that's new to me too, because of the scholarly articles we had to read in grad school. And you start, getting exposed to these things. It's a kind of a new idea, new-ish, so, but not that article that, like I said, really dense JSTOR type of scholarly article. You could really read about that, and it could help you, what's the word I'm looking for? Theorize about it. It's something that's kind of being developed, and I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah,
well, I don't really know if I'm grabbing what it is, but when I think about what you presented on expanded painting, what in my imagination, the way I was interpreting it is, looking at a piece of art as if it was a painting, the way that we normally look at a painting. So, so if it's made of pieces of metal, but we perceive it the way that we interact with it, the way that we interact with a painting, which is actually different from the way we interact with a sculpture.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. I think there's two ways to look at it. And again, none of this is in stone. We are all interpreting this. Excuse me. I think there's the way that we look at a work, and it's also how the artist is making a work. Like me, I always feel like I'm painting. It's just where my brain is. And somebody might look at something I make that's not made of paint and be like, that's not a painting. And it's like, to them, it's not, you know? But I think the idea, one of the ideas for expanded painting is the idea that we can be more encompassing what is painting. I think if we give it that narrow view, a brush with paint, then painting's dead every 10 years because nobody paints all the time usually. And if somebody does, sometimes they go off of it. And if you don't make a painting, what, in a year, does that mean you're not a painter anymore? I don't know. I think it kind of opens it up. Hi, Charlotte.
Thank you. I got unmuted. Is it necessary for the outsider artist to be seen by someone else, or does he make art mostly for himself, for the need, the urge to express something that's in himself?
I love that question. And I think about 5 million answers at once because I'm thinking about everything I showed you, those two gentlemen who made those buildings under the cover of night sneaking around. I don't think they were ever making it to show it to anyone. I think they were doing it because they had to.
Yeah, understand, Joe.
Right. At the same time, you've got people who are making, I think all of them are making it because they're, you know, they're not, I'm jumbling around here. I think they're making it not worried about whether somebody sees it or not. And if they do, I think it's a happy accident or like a cherry on a sundae. But I think it's all right to strive for being seen and, you know, making a living, to be a successful artist. You know, the only way, I've been contemplating this constantly lately, like the luxury of not having to worry about life. So you can just get in your studio, and that's when the most magnificent work is made without the distraction, or when you can choose your distraction. So I don't know if I answered your question. I hope it helped.
Yeah. Do they ever do it to make money?
Oh, some people do, yeah. And but you mean the outsiders?
Yeah.
Well, think about quilters, you know, like more functional or crafty type stuff.
Yeah.
Not craft. Yeah, craft is not a bad word. Believe me, I've seen some gallery shows of quilts that are fine, high art and magnificent.
Sure. Geez, they're wonderful. Yeah.
Exactly. And so the point is that's a decision the artist makes. You know, so I think the answer is whatever you want. You don't have to be seen. You can want to be seen. You don't have to sell your work. You can sell your work. You know, I really think it could be anything you want it to be. And that's why I was hoping this talk would be inspiring to let you know how limitless this all is.
Yeah, sure. Like the lady with the paintings with the big eyes. I mean, she was out to make money, even it was from like flea markets, and sidewalk sales.
I just did a pop-up in the Old City. It was a disaster. It was a disaster. I'm not going to do it again. It's just, but I tried. I was trying to sell some old studies, you know, clean out the studio kind of sale.
Right, and then you have your Hilma af Klint, who went out of her way to make sure her work wasn't seen.
But let's add something to that. Let's be fair. Let's talk about being wealthy and of privilege in a Victorian age. She could do that. I couldn't do that. So, you know, I don't want to hold that against her. I'm glad she did what she did because she wanted to do that. She worked with what she had. But I wonder how many other people would have hid their work if they didn't have to worry about money.
But she was also one of these artists who were compelled. I mean, she kind of had no choice but to make those works.
But there's a distinction. Her and Brenda, the woman with the dreams, they were being directed as they were as far as they were concerned, something or someone was telling them to make the work. Now, you know, we could blame our muses for that, but I don't feel that there is an entity telling me to do something. So that's the difference between me and Hilma and Brenda. But again, the art world is open for this. And Alex Gray went into a whole other dimension as far as he's concerned from, you know, psychotropic drugs. And his brain was opened up. Like, this is what happens when a genius does drugs. That's what happened to him.
Well, I just want to I have to throw in for Hilma af Klint because I have a Hilma af Klint tattoo.
Wow.
Oh God, wait, I gotta pin you. I want to see that big.
I want to, Dori, that talk was awesome, was fascinating. I loved it. Thank you.
Oh, good. So glad. Wow.
So did you use the top of one of the 10 largest? I didn't get the orange and blue circle. I just had the artist kind of arrange it this way.
Raina, you're the first person I've seen with her work. That's just amazing. I applaud you.
Yeah, I went to the Guggenheim and I was like, oh my God, I love her so much. Like,
You
I
saw
was
it then.
so inspired. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wait, was that the first time you saw her work?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Fantastic that you got to see, because I've never seen all of her work in one place like that. The only other show I saw was at the top of something. It might have been the Breuer when it was open, and it was from a private collection, these square paintings that nobody ever sees. So anytime you can see her work, keep your eye out, go see it.
Yeah.
And that work was so large. And the fact that she was trying to keep it hidden, first of all, the art was huge. So she's trying to hide these huge things, and that they were preserved.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And could be seen, and it looked so fresh.
Yes, that's the thing.
Has anyone seen the documentary about her?
I've seen a couple of films, but if there's a named documentary, no, tell me.
No. Well, it was, I mean, yeah, it was, I forget what it's called, but it came out maybe like right after the Guggenheim show.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that was very good too.
Yeah, she to speak to what Susan just said, is that I wonder, Susan, let's say she was like all the rest of the female artists at the time, was like, okay, I don't need to hide my work. Nobody, I don't care if anybody gets it. I'm putting my work out there. Would it still have been hidden simply because she was trying to be a female painter at that time? I find it fascinating that while women were being hidden purposefully, she chose to hide her work, and she could have bought a gallery space and shown it herself.
Well, especially because people weren't doing abstract work at the time.
Yeah,
nobody. That would have been another reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my reading of it is, that she also, the fact that she did that is why it survives right now. It may not, if she had been more open about it, maybe it wouldn't have, maybe some things would have been destroyed, or, it would have been, could have been, perceived that she was, wasn't any good or whatever. And so,
right. It could have been discounted. Yeah, it could have been, you're saying it could have been discounted.
Yeah.
And then it would be, put in storage and brought in whatever. Yeah, I imagine so.
And also, one more thing, Susan, I'd like to say to your point, is that another thing I read somewhere in my travels was that if she had shown her work, somebody would have been influenced by it, and she never would have gotten credit for being the person who did it.
Mm-hmm.
So
right, it was so clear, that she was way ahead of her time.
Realize she was before Mondrian, she was before Kandinsky. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about seeing her at the Guggenheim, and I don't know how many people know this, but there's a whole series of paintings that she did that, yes, they came to her revisions, but they also came to her. For her, they needed to be displayed in a cathedral.
Yeah, they were for a temple.
That didn't exist. And she envisioned this as a spiral ramp ascending, and her paintings would be like stations on that path.
Think about it.
And
the Guggenheim is a spiral ramped building.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was the perfect place to see that.
So it happened. It did eventually happen for her.
Although by the time I got up there, I was exhausted.
Oh yeah,
it was just so much work.
That's what I mean. There were no coffee beans.
So Dori, can I introduce a different topic?
Yes, of course.
Because as we were going through, I didn't want to interrupt you, but okay, so there's two parts. So let me just say both parts, because it's very exciting. Going back to Jose Manuel Ballester.
Yes.
Who removed the figures from these iconic paintings. Okay, so there was the painting that you showed. It was the Goya, the something of May. Was it the 3rd of May or the 5th of May or whatever that one was?
Okay.
Okay, so what I noticed about that, it's, we're looking at, you were showing reproductions of the original, which of course the color is going to be different. Yeah. Right? And then you were showing the Ballester piece. So in that particular piece, you noticed that there was a shift in the lighting.
I'm going there right now. I was pulling it up because I thought I might need to make a correction.
Well, when I was looking at that, I was asking myself, why are these paintings so chilling? The effect of a space without the drama, without that theater stage.
Let me pull it up while you're talking. Okay, I'm going to share it.
Of the human drama. And in that one particular piece, it looked like possibly the artist shifted the lighting. It's not light because there are no guns firing.
Oh my God, I was wondering that question myself of why he made that decision. That is a really good eye. Susan.
So that was, and because as I was saying, why are these so chilling? And then this picture showed up and I realized, well, that so illustrates what happens when you remove the human activity from the frame. Am I imagining this or
No,
what?
there's no more violence. It's exactly right. That is a really great, I love that you saw that.
You know, you could have thrown Goya into the protest art category, actually. He was,
Yeah, you're right.
He was one of the first practitioners.
So, you know, all of this labeling goes to, I'm going to stop sharing, goes to, yeah, the constant need to categorize so we can, you know, get our brains around it. It's like, I understand the need to do that, and that's what we do. But by pigeonholing, you take away the fact that, again, overlap all over the place. We're all doing so many things.
Yeah, and to go back, I don't know if you're done, Susan. You said you had a couple of things.
Oh yeah, there was two parts, right?
Well, I mean, the two parts, one was, I noticed this thing and what did you think about that? And the second one was, do you have an idea of why these paintings are so chilling?
Oh, well, to me, let me think about that for a second. Oh, well, abandonment and the people are not there anymore. And it looked to me, it looks like something that's impossible. In other words, those landscapes don't exist without the figures, but this guy is showing you, yes, they can. And I think that they're meant to be foreboding and scary because think about it, all those paintings have action. He removes the action, but it's still this really pregnant space. Just like you said, because of the light. That's my guess right now from what you're asking me. And I just wonder if you have anything else to say about that.
Well, mainly that it's, you know, the raft of the Medusa, you know, that, yeah, if the humans aren't on the raft, then something else has to happen. It's almost, well, it's such a big philosophical idea, you know, that something else has, if you remove the humans from the drama on the stage setting.
Is there drama?
Something else has to happen. And it's fascinating concept. I think that fellow is brilliant.
Yeah, that was just one of his bodies of work. You know, I was like, I don't have time. I can't look at anything else right now. This is relevant. Let's just stick with this. But I wanted to give him the extra time.
Yeah. Well, I just, you know, the spaces themselves are artifacts of human activity, right?
Yeah, they're vacuums, right?
They're vacuum. I just wanted to say about that. Some of them could be seen as, okay, we're going to pluck away the humans. But others, like the raft and also the 3rd of May, at first I thought this of the raft. It's what happens when all the people fall off or die, like it's a passage of time.
Yeah.
And then it's like this, they're all gone. And same with the 3rd of May. Some time goes by, or even the Last Supper, they all leave. You know, you get up and that's what's left.
Yeah. What's interesting though, at least in the case of Goya, to your point, is that I forget what I was going to say just now. It's as if the blood is still wet on the ground. Like it's the dust is settling in this one. It's that moment, right?
Yeah.
Raft of the Medusa, according to your point, it's more like alien abduction or something because the raft's in the exact same position. The waves are crashing exactly the same way. The wind is pulling the sail exactly the same way. So I think each one tells a different story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's pretty much frozen. It says something about the original work in a way. Yeah, and this one, he took it off the wall because you told me about the doorway. I couldn't figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, I'm glad you started with the Raft of the Medusa. I thought that was a great introduction to a lot of the concepts that you talked about later. But I noticed from your slide that Kippenberger, that was, your slide mentioned that this was from a series that he did about that painting. So I was just curious about that. And I sort of just Googled it while we were talking, and yeah, there's like 49 works involved,
See,
and a whole bunch of studies, and
you see, I had to get a hold of myself. I couldn't even look at that show while I was building this. Again, another 2-hour talk.
yeah, it's really it's really interesting, and he gets interested in little parts of that painting and goes off on them. It's kind of fascinating. But I also thought, other than the Coons, I mean, which was an out and out industrial copy,
Yeah.
It was funny that the most faithful reproduction was the chocolate painting.
Yeah.
That's the one that looked most like the original. I thought that was
So good.
Well, I think that the Gross McLeaf Gallery is going to get a lot more foot traffic in the upcoming days because of your talk.
Oh,
I
definitely.
know I'll be going.
Yeah, you've got to make an appointment though. They are definitely want appointments. Just so, book it. And they're cool. You'll just get an email back from Rebecca, the new owner. And I hope you all, when it's time to go to PMA, just go hunting for Dave's pot. Yeah, that big huge pot.
If it's still there.
I think it's part of the collection, but I don't know if it's out. It's like what they do at the Met with the David plates, just shove them under the stairs against the wall. And they've got him in a vitrine just behind the room. Then they had it there with that dime store cigarette Native American sculpture. That's super not cool, super racist. I don't know if that's still out there, but I feel like they might have put that in the back.
Yeah, I haven't been there. It's all open now, the new wing and everything.
Yeah.
I haven't been there since.
I've been, you mean the downstairs?
Yeah.
I gotta see that. I have got to see that. Well, there'll be more space.
The Geary spaces.
Wow, really? I didn't know that. Wow. I'm sorry if I overwhelmed you all, and I warned you.
No, it was overwhelming in a good way.
Okay.
Well, I think that your talk, Dori, will make our future salons richer, because we've been exposed to some new ideas here. And, we'll just be continuing the conversation.
Oh, that makes me so happy. That is the point.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I got to watch the overload for myself because it could end up like a diner menu. It's like too much. I don't know where to start. So sometimes it's, I just look around at what I actually have, and I'll just start, don't buy anything, just see what you can do. And honestly, that collage thing we did, that collaboration, that was so much fun.
Wasn't that a gas? And we hope to show those. So for those of you who are here, the world is starting to open up, and the world includes the Plastic Club. And so we'll be having that discussion of how we can get back into the physical space. And then we'll have a chance to actually show those collage pieces in person. So I look forward to the day. So that's discussion that will be coming up at the board level.
May I ask Bob more? Yeah, I'm waiting to hear from you, sir.
Yes. Well, first, a practical point. Your 3 pages of references.
Yeah.
How are we going to see those? Are they going to be?
Oh, I need to format them. They're a mess right now, but I'm going to email them to somebody, or maybe somebody I'll just email it as the Plastic Club.
Okay.
Somebody's going to show me how to get to the whole list, and then everybody can have it.
Right. I don't want to watch the whole movie to get to them.
No, it's going to be like a Word document.
And then my comment is, thank you very much for this bulletin from the world of fine arts. It's very much fine art, though. It's not commercial art at all.
No, that's the idea.
Like all of your examples of people who were asked, I always stumble on the word.
Think appropriate.
Appropriationists. They were all borrowing from the Canon. And then finally, my last point is, because I don't have a art background, I had to figure out Canon. What Canon? No, that's okay. It's fine art. Everybody in fine arts knows what the Canon is.
Bob, you're right, because that was one of my thoughts. Is the first slide I wanted to put up is I better go get a dictionary definition of the Canon and put the word Canon in front of it. And you're right. I'm going to, excuse me, add that and fix it.
So thank you very much, Dori.
Sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Is there any wrap up we need to do, or we just go home?
Well, Bob just reminded me of that closing where we talked about contemporary art and how we're no longer making art for the ages. We're just making it for each other.
That's the only art that she's interested in. We're making our art for each other, meaning when you see, you know, somebody famous who's a contemporary artist who makes something, they're making it for you to go look at. And when you make something, you're making it for us to go look at. So hold that and own that, because it'll make you feel more validated, I think.
But that's also to say that this is about now. This is a conversation, you know, we're actually, this is kind of a conversation that's happening in the present.
Yes.
That it's interesting, you know, that sense of it's a whole different sense of time.
Yes, all we can do is document it. Absolutely, all they say through school is document, document, document. I mean, if you're an earthworks artist and you make works out of, you know, like, oh God, I can't remember his name, but it doesn't matter, you know, just, but takes, you know, spiral jetty, for instance, right?
Oh yeah, okay.
You're making something out of natural materials that is exposed to the elements. You need to document that you're making it because it will go away. And then the documentation will become the work. So yeah, if you're using materials that can easily decay and that are not archival, just take a video, take good pictures, and then you've preserved the work.
Yeah, like Patrick Doherty, the Ness.
Oh yeah,
the sculptural nest. You know, and also, Dori, you know, it's so stimulating your presentation that, and then you mentioned the collage project that we did.
Yeah.
It almost invites us to consider creating a special experience of what we talked about. Challenge to the artists of the club to create something, art for each other, you know, something experiential. I mean, we could actually talk about creating, you know, a special happening, you know, where we come together with pieces that are meant to be shared.
You mean like a takeaway?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. I mean, so that we get to experience as artists what it is to create such a thing, and also to experience somebody else's creation. I mean, it's a fascinating idea.
What's fascinating is that I didn't mention this. I just didn't think to mention it. But now that if we go further with the idea of a takeaway situation, is that when the thing on the left of the squares, the little paintings, like those were paintings to me, right? There's nothing on them. I had to decide that I didn't want to have any ownership. And as an artist, that's the first time I've ever done that. I didn't sign them, and nobody will ever know that I made them if they pick them up, except for the person who picked them up. And that is part of the work. And that is a really interesting thing to do as an artist. It'll divest you from a lie.
Fascinating.
I'm not going to do that all the time. I might do it a couple more times, but I'm glad that I did it.
Yeah. Well, I think we have a lot to think about.
Okay. Bye, Raina. She left.
How do NFTs fit into all this, or do they at all?
Well, that's just it. That we're still out on that. I have watched so many YouTube videos on how to do this because I'm getting freaked out that I could be wealthy right now by what I'm seeing. And everything I'm watching is that there's an investment, but you might lose all the money you put into it. And I'm understanding all the terminology. And I am not in a position right now to spend the hours it's going to take. Like I really would like to just throw everything off the desk and look into this, but it's just another thing keeping me out of my studio. So it's kind of a catch-22. Hey, Bob.
I looked into it a little bit, and I talked to an accountant about it.
Oh, yeah?
And he said your accounting costs would skyrocket because clients don't know anything about this stuff. They're going to have to learn from scratch. So that made me step away.
You know, and two, the unpredictability of the cryptocurrencies. I mean, I think, did anybody see Saturday Night Live 2 weeks ago where Elon Musk was on, right? And he's talking about like, what is Dogecoin? What is this? And then I looked it up and I was like, okay, another currency is coming out. And they're all, we don't know how long any of them are going to last. And if you own a share or, excuse me, a Bitcoin, I think, I don't know, last time I knew somebody who had, when he bought it for $100, it's worth $5,000 now. It's ridiculous, but that could also go right through the floor. So I want to spend more time making work and not trying to sell work. If I have and I'm thinking, I keep kicking myself, like, I think you should try to do this. But here's my question, and Bob Moore, I wonder if you thought about this. One question I can't get anybody to answer, because what I've seen is they will, like in printmaking, edition the digital ones, and there'd be like 10 copies of the same thing that different people can bid on. And then somebody bids on it and buys it. And then you have a back-end agreement. If you're smart, you get 10% of every, because what people do is buy it from an artist they think will become worth more. And then that's why it goes up to the millions of dollars, and that person sells it to somebody else. And you get money off the back end of every single sale in perpetuity. And that's what the blockchain is keeping track of for each piece. So my question is, if I take a picture, like I thought this was smart. Let's say I have this huge painting. I can take a picture of a detail, like just the bottom left corner, and make an NFT out of that. It's not even the whole painting, and sell that, right? Just crop in close. But my question is, if I take a picture, a digital image of an entire painting and put that up as an NFT, that has a value. But do I still have ownership to the original painting? And does that have value? Does the work exist in two spaces monetarily and in ownership? That I can't get anybody to answer that for me.
So you have 10 copies.
Yep.
Imprints, you sell 10 of them. Do you still own a hypothetical virtual 11th copy? I'm another person who doesn't know the answer.
My guess on that one is, and again, there's no rules, because why would printmaking have any effect over NFTs? But NFTs are using the word edition. It's an edition of 10. That's a printmaking term. So if you keep an artist proof for yourself, and a digital copy does not degrade from the original copy, like duplicating of the file. I mean, going from onto a flash drive, or every time it gets copied or it gets emailed or something. But I don't think the NFTs are going to be that way, because they've got to be really high resolution, right? So
I don't think so. No,
No?
an NFT just sold for $65,000. That was a single pixel, single gray pixel.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh!
You could argue you can't get any higher resolution than that, but you also can't get any lower resolution than that.
Is it the size of a pixel?
It is a pixel. I mean, it doesn't have a size, really.
Yeah, but if you look at it, you'll see that. But if you blow it up, it's just a square. But it's not any better resolution, and it's vector because it's just a square.
Yeah, and it's gray. It's a gray pixel.
You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to sell a 0 and a 1. That's what I'm going to sell. But that's what I want to know. I want to know, I feel like I can't even go into this unless I know if my original painting still has its original value, and I can still sell that if I want to a collector, old school. And I can also sell the digital, are they called digital prints or no? Are they called NFTs, right?
Yeah, the NFT is a thing.
It's a thing. It's not a digital print.
No.
Yeah, but you do limited edition. It's limited by how many you put out. And I think I saw NFT artists doing like 10 or even 100 of a thing. It's up to you, but like I said, the tangible piece, and I kind of answered my question a little bit, but I wouldn't want to do this. There are some people who will sell an NFT that is a digital image of a tangible artwork, and it goes some ridiculous amount of money, like that $65,000. And then they feel compelled to, hey, you buy the NFT, I'm going to include the original artwork for you. I saw some artists doing that, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's making your original work an afterthought. I didn't make the work to make an NFT, but again, I'm an old school artist, and NFT just started. So who knows where it's going to go.
I'm waiting for someone else to do the research.
Exactly. That's as much as I've been. I know it's too much. It's too much right now.